Good morning, yogis. This is Rishika. Let's talk about Sirsasana today, headstand, sometimes called the king of postures. Now, headstand, of course, is an inversion. It requires a certain amount of core strength and shoulder strength. And anytime we've got weight on top of the head, we want to be really careful with that. So please don't approach this posture if you're unsure about your strength in the shoulders, in the elbows, and the neck, or at least consult with a teacher or use a spotter as you're coming into this posture for the first time. Having said all that, it is not a particularly difficult pose once you understand the physics of it. So oftentimes what we'll see in yoga is, well, we always interlace the fingers and place them across the back of the head like so. I'm going to do it on the top of my head so that you can see. See how my palms are flat against the head and how my fingers are flat against my skull? So that's normally how people will practice this posture. And that gives us a little bit of a disadvantage because what we could be doing is instead cupping the fingers like this. We've got them interlaced, but then we're creating this space in between the palms. And as you can see, when that's on my head, I've got a little bit of extra surface area here with the outsides of the hands and the baby fingers. And so you can both use a little muscle strength there to help adjust your balance, and it also gives you a little bit better of a platform, a little bit wider platform on which to balance the weight. The other thing we want to make sure we do is have our elbows close together. So oftentimes in class when people are unfamiliar with this posture, I'll see them start with the elbows pretty wide out, and that gives you more of a tippy feeling. So you want a triangle platform. Fingers cupped, like so, and then elbows maybe a little bit more than shoulder width distance apart. Great way to start approaching this posture is to do it against a wall, which is what I'm going to do for you here. Normally we'll be coming into headstand from dolphin pose, which is basically down dog with the elbows down. I've got my feet wide here so you can see what I'm doing with my elbows. I've got that cup between my palms, the fingers are interlaced, and then I'm going to put the crown of my head flat on the mat here. Now I'll walk my feet back together as though I'm in dolphin. And up against a wall, what you can do is take one leg up, whichever one feels appropriate to you, and then you just start to kind of kick it up a little higher and higher. You've got the wall there, so you're not going to go over, and then eventually bring the other leg up to meet it. That's one way to approach this. Another way, if it's easier, if your hamstrings are maybe a little shorter, this might be more appropriate for you, is to bend one knee and then the other, and then start extending the legs, like so. And then, of course, you've got the wall there, so right now I'm resting my heels against the wall. I'm totally supported. And you can check your balance. So you want to have not so much weight in the head that it's putting a lot of strain on the neck. I want to balance most of the weight in my elbows, or at least equally balanced between the elbows and the crown of the head. And then you can find the balance, experiment with taking the heels away from the wall. The whole core is firm, and then I always tell people to pinch a penny between the butt cheeks. That's what we used to say in gymnastics. And so that's a good way to make sure you're engaging the pelvic floor, which helps stabilize the whole torso. To come down, you simply step out, keep the hips up until you come down. Now I'm going to pull my mat away from the wall here so I can show you what this looks like from the side. Now you can use either of those versions to get the legs up overhead once you start moving away from the wall. I'm going to show you a pike-up version, which is the way I like to do it. So again, we're starting from dolphin with the elbows down, interlacing the fingers, keeping that space between the palms, crown of the head comes down. And then I start to lift my hips up over my shoulders until my toes start to kind of float. And then when that happens, I can start to pike up all the way into Sirsasana. Finding my balance here, checking the distribution of weight. And now I'll show you what to do if things go wrong and your hips go too far over. You're going to unlace your fingers, but keep them close to the head. You don't want them to flare out. Say my hips go too far, I unlace my fingers, tuck my chin, and roll out in a somersault, just like you did when you were a kid. This is probably not going to happen to you in class, but I've certainly done it. I've seen other people do it from time to time. So it's really good to have an option so that you can recover if that happens and you don't, kind of like fall out of control and knock somebody else over or something like that. That's a good one to practice with a spotter. So if you want to work on that rollout, just in case you kick up a little too hard, the hips go a little too far, something goes wrong. Because oftentimes what will happen is people just kind of like collapse down onto their shoulders and crumple to the ground, which is not necessarily safe for your neck. Just make sure you tuck the chin, unlace those fingers, otherwise sometimes they can get crunched against the skull and that does not feel good. So you want to have a little bit of space so that you can roll over and the fingers are a little bit more out of the way. So I hope that helps. Sirsasana is often called the king of postures, and it's a great inversion that helps reverse the effect of gravity on the body, get some blood, some prana, oxygen into the brain tissue, and balance things out hormonally, nervous system, etc. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it goes well for you. See you in class. Namaste.